Alleluia, Alleluia. Everybody sing Alleluia, for the Lord has risen, it is true. Everybody sing Alleluia. 30 years he walked the land. Alleluia, Alleluia. To all in need he lent his hand. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Everybody sing.
Hello, welcome to this playlist, which is devoted to an analysis and better understanding of the Second Vatican Council. We've been discussing the Council's document, Sacrosanctum Concilium, and today we're going to do our final installment on that document, at least for the time being. While most of our discussion concerning Sacrosanctum Concilium has been devoted to how the document has affected dogma and the liturgy, today's topic doesn't concern dogma. It concerns the construction of ugly churches. The following clip is from a documentary called What We Have Lost and the Road to Restoration. And if you'd like to see the entire documentary, there's a link provided down below.
One obvious aspect of the Vatican II revolution is the change in church architecture. In the past 30-some years, many magnificent old structures have been modified or destroyed. And following Vatican II, the hierarchy directed that great churches, those that are also works of art, should no longer be built because they are an affront to the poor. So, with rare exceptions, the construction of new magnificent structures dedicated to the honor of God are discouraged. And Judas's admonition to Mary Magdalene that money not be wasted on the service of our Lord is repeated in the socially correct sensitivity that inspires the design of so many of today's Catholic churches. Most of the new structures are not only aesthetically bankrupt, they occasionally invite comparison to pagan shrines. And others are no longer called churches, but communities. Yet while church exteriors have supposedly become less offensive to the poor, their interiors look more like barren auditoriums or theaters, even New Age temples, rather than Catholic places of worship. At the same time, older, once sacred church interiors have been transformed into mere shells of their former grace and solemnity. Traditional and holy furnishings that for generations had identified them as uniquely Catholic have been doomed. In what can be likened to the destruction and desecration wrought by the French Revolution's reign of terror, the years following Vatican II have seen the virtual gutting and ransacking of Catholic churches throughout the world. Michael Matt, editor of The Remnant, describes his own chilling memories of a similar experience from his childhood.
It is also the church that when the changes came about, the high altar, they took a chainsaw or whatever type of saw cuts marble, hacked it up, and to this day, if any of you ever come to visit the Remnant, I can take you to the place, to this parking lot, again, over this church where I was baptized, and show you where pieces of the high altar are being used as curbstones in the parking lot.
Actually, the construction of ugly churches didn't really begin after the Second Vatican Council. It actually began earlier. It began in Europe after the Second World War under the reign of Pope Pius XII. And there was a need to rebuild many churches that had been damaged in the war, and modern architecture seemed to be favored by many within the church. However, that trend really picked up steam with the Second Vatican Council, and that's because Article 124 of Sacrosanctum Concilium said, "And when churches are to be built, let great care be taken that they be suitable for the celebration of liturgical services and for the active participation of the faithful." So what does this mean? Along with mandating a man-centered liturgy, Sacrosanctum Concilium also mandated a man-centered church, where once the primary purpose of Catholic churches was to give praise and honor to God, the Second Vatican Council made the facilitation of active participation of the faithful more of a priority. When worship takes a backstage, the altar becomes more like a stage for the main act of a man-centered liturgy. In a man-centered church, the sight lines and getting the patrons closer to the stage is a priority, and as a result, churches are now being constructed in a more box-like pattern. Sometimes the altar is in the middle of a church, and then sometimes the building actually resembles theater in the round. Of course, in a man-centered church, any semblance of a sanctuary is long gone. If a faithful Catholic priest wants to build a new traditional church, he must go and get it approved by the diocese, and there he's going to run into roadblocks in the hierarchy at most dioceses. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a man-centered church, Here's a picture of a church in Uvari, India. The lower level is patterned after a boat, and the upper level is modeled after an airplane. Rather than suggesting the worship of God, it suggests that it's celebrating man's technology and ingenuity. It seems to echo the sin of the Tower of Babel. The good news, however, is that TripAdvisor.com gives the church a 5-star rating. While there are some nice new churches that are still being built, they are definitely in the minority. If your great-great-grandparents walked into your local church, what would they think they had walked into? A Catholic church, a Protestant church, or a local civic center? Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video. We'll be back again in about a week with another one. In the meantime, please pray for the church.
São Francisco está